A notification lit up the screen in the darkness. Sarah's trembling finger hovered over the profile picture. Her father's face stared back at her, unchanged since the day he left for Afghanistan 7 years ago. The man the military had confirmed was buried under 6 feet of sand, halfway across the world. The discovery happened on a rainy Tuesday evening in suburban Colorado. Sarah Miller, 19, college sophomore, had been mindlessly scrolling through friend suggestions when she saw him. U.S. Army Staff Sergeant James Miller, 42, believed killed in action during an ambush outside Kandahar. The profile had been created just 3 days earlier. James had been the kind of father who never missed a soccer game. His booming laugh could fill their small house on Baker Street, the one with the tire swing he'd hung from the oak tree the weekend before deployment. "I'll be back before that rope even starts to fray," he'd promised Sarah, then just 12. She still remembered the smell of his standard-issue shampoo when he hugged her goodbye. The army chaplain who came to their door 11 months later spoke in hushed tones about honor and sacrifice. Sarah's mother collapsed in the hallway when he handed her the folded flag. The rope on the tire swing had frayed, then broken 3 summers ago. How could a dead man create a Facebook profile? The question burned through Sarah's mind as she stared at the familiar face. His hazel eyes, the small scar above his right eyebrow from a childhood accident. It was undeniably him, but the background showed an unfamiliar coastline. Was someone playing a cruel joke? Her finger trembled as she hovered over the message button. "What do you say to a ghost?" "Mom, I need you to come look at something," Sarah called, her voice cracking. The house had been silent since her mother started working night shifts at the hospital. The wall still held photos of James, frozen in time, eternally 35, eternally smiling. Would these digital pixels shatter 7 years of grieving? Sarah couldn't breathe as footsteps approached her bedroom door. That night changed everything. The Miller family's quiet existence splintered open like a grenade. The grief they had carefully packed away exploded back into their lives. Local news vans lined their street by morning. Military officials arrived by afternoon. Was it possible? Could a decorated soldier have abandoned his unit, his country, his family? The Pentagon spokesman's rehearsed statement offered no answers, only an ongoing investigation. Sarah's mother Mary clutched her daughter's hand during the press conference, her wedding ring still on her finger after all these years. "We just want the truth," she told the cameras, dark circles under her eyes betraying sleepless nights. But what truth could possibly make sense of this nightmare? What explanation could justify 7 years of empty chairs at dinner tables, of missed graduations and birthdays? The profile disappeared 12 hours after Sarah discovered it. Screenshots became the only evidence it had ever existed. Digital ghosts, military secrets, and a family caught in an impossible limbo. Was James Miller alive? And if he was, who was buried in his grave at Arlington? The mystery had only begun to unravel. The first message arrived at 3:17 a.m. from an anonymous account. "Your father is alive. Trust no one." 7 words that shattered any hope of sleep. Sarah printed the screenshot and hid it beneath her mattress. The next day, 2 men in suits visited her mother at work. They asked questions about Sarah's online activities. They left no cards, no names. What had her father been involved in? What could make a decorated soldier with 15 years of service abandon everything? Sarah found herself looking over her shoulder on the way to classes. The familiar streets of her hometown suddenly felt foreign, filled with shadows and whispers. Her mother started checking the locks 3 times each night. "Either my father is alive and abandoned us," Sarah told her best friend Layla over coffee, "or someone is playing the cruelest joke imaginable." But there was a third possibility, one that made her stomach twist. What if he hadn't left voluntarily? What if something more sinister had happened? The military investigation seemed to move at a glacial pace, offering only standardized responses and bureaucratic delays. On her laptop, Sarah created a folder. She labeled it Ghost. Inside, she compiled everything she knew about her father's final mission. News articles, obituaries, the few redacted reports she could access through Freedom of Information requests. The official story had always been clean, tragic, but straightforward. Ambush, firefight, explosion. No recovered remains, but DNA evidence at the scene. Case closed. Until now. "I'm going to find you," Sarah whispered to her father's photo. Whether he was a victim or a deserter, she needed answers. The quest for truth had only just begun, and already the shadows were gathering. What secrets lay buried in the Afghan dust? What truths would surface after 7 years of silence? And was Sarah prepared for the answers, whatever they might be? The military file landed on Sarah's doorstep in a plain manila envelope with no return address. Inside, 50 pages of heavily redacted documents, black lines obscuring most of the text. But between the censored sections, fragments emerged. Her father's unit had been on a classified operation, not a routine patrol as they'd been told. 3 soldiers reported KIA, including James. 2 survivors, both subsequently assigned to desk duties and separated to different bases. A single photograph fell from between the pages. 5 men in combat gear, arms around each other's shoulders, faces dusty but smiling. Her father stood second from left. Sarah recognized the man on the far right from news coverage years ago, Sergeant Alex Donovan, now working as a military contractor after an honorable discharge. Mary's hands shook as she examined the files spread across their kitchen table. Who sent these? How did they get this information? The questions hung in the air like smoke. The documents shouldn't exist outside secure military servers. Whoever had access was either very connected or very dangerous, possibly both. "I need to find Donovan," Sarah said, researching his last known location, Phoenix, Arizona. Her mother protested. It was too dangerous, too uncertain. But Sarah had already made up her mind. 7 years, Mom. 7 years of visiting an empty grave. 2 days later, she boarded a flight west, the mysterious file secured in her carry-on bag. Phoenix in July felt like walking on the surface of the sun. Sarah checked into a budget motel, spread the documents across the bed, and began plotting her approach. Donovan worked security at a private firm specializing in government contracts. Their website featured his photo under Our Team, older, harder-looking than the young soldier in the unit photograph, with a thick beard and eyes that had seen too much. The corporate headquarters occupied a sleek glass building downtown. Sarah waited across the street, watching employees filter out at day's end. When Donovan finally emerged, she almost missed him. His limp was new, his frame thinner than expected. She followed him to a bar 3 blocks away, gathered her courage and slid onto the stool beside him. "Sergeant Donovan?" Her voice sounded steadier than she felt. "My name is Sarah Miller, James Miller's daughter." The glass froze halfway to his lips. Recognition, then shock, then something unreadable flashed across his face. "You shouldn't be here," he finally said, eyes scanning the room nervously. "You have no idea what you're getting into. My father's Facebook profile was active last week, 7 years after his funeral." Sarah placed the unit photograph on the bar between them. "I need to know what really happened." Donovan drained his whiskey, signaled for another. "Nothing good comes from digging up graves, kid, especially empty ones." But his eyes betrayed him, a flicker of fear when she mentioned the profile, a subtle tensing of his shoulders. "Was he on the mission with you? Did something happen that isn't in the reports?" "Look around, Sarah. See the guy by the jukebox, the woman near the bathroom. They've been watching since you walked in." Donovan's voice dropped to a whisper. "Your father got involved in something bigger than all of us. The official story, the ambush, the KIA report, it was cleaner than what really happened. For everyone's sake." "Is he alive?" Donovan slid from his stool, threw cash on the bar. He leaned close, his breath hot against her ear. "Wednesday, Papago Park, sunrise, come alone or don't come." Then he was gone, pushing through the door and disappearing into the Phoenix night. Sarah felt the watcher's eyes on her back as she paid for her untouched soda. Outside, the heat still radiated from the sidewalk. Her phone buzzed with 3 missed calls from her mother, but a new message caught her attention, an email notification from an address she didn't recognize. "Stop looking. They're watching." Back at the motel, Sarah triple-checked the locks and pushed a chair under the doorknob. Sleep came in fitful bursts, filled with dreams of her father walking across desert sands, his footprints disappearing behind him. In one nightmare, she found him living in a small coastal town with a new family who had no idea about his past life. She woke, gasping, wondering if that would be better or worse than the alternative, that her father had been silenced for knowing too much. Morning came with a pounding on her door that sent her heart into her throat. But it was only the motel manager, clipboard in hand. "You, Sarah Miller? Package for you at the front desk." The small padded envelope contained a single USB drive and a note. "Don't plug this into any device connected to the internet. D." Sarah drove to an electronics store, purchased the cheapest laptop they had, and found a quiet corner of a public library. The drive contained a single video file, dated 3 weeks after her father's supposed death. The footage was grainy, obviously from a security camera. A hospital hallway somewhere, medical staff rushing past. And there, being wheeled on a gurney, face bruised but unmistakable. James Miller listed as KIA but very much alive. Her hands trembled as she ejected the drive. The timestamp, the location, both had been digitally obscured. But the implications were clear. Her father had survived whatever happened in Afghanistan. The military had lied. But why? And where was he now? The sunrise meeting at Papago Park loomed less than 24 hours away. Sarah clutched the USB drive, now her only tangible evidence that her world had been built on a foundation of lies. Whatever Donovan knew could answer everything, or put her in the same danger that had been following her father for 7 years. The choice to continue felt both impossible and inevitable. That night, Sarah called her mother from a payphone, not trusting her cell. "I'm close to something, Mum. I can feel it." The fear in Mary's voice cut through the static. "Someone broke in last night, Sarah. They didn't take anything, but all your father's things were searched, his old papers, our photo albums. The police said it was probably just kids, but—" "Pack a bag," Sarah interrupted. "Go to Aunt Jenny's. Don't tell anyone where you're going." The threads were pulling tighter, the stakes escalating with each passing hour. Whatever had been buried in Afghanistan was reaching out with long arms, threatening to drag them all under the sand. 7 years earlier, the November sky had been gunmetal grey when the chaplain and notification officer arrived at their front door. Mary had been baking James's favourite cookies, chocolate chip with walnuts, for a care package. The smell still filled the house when she collapsed at the news. 12-year-old Sarah had stood frozen in the hallway, watching her mother's world implode, unable to process that her father would never come home. The funeral at Arlington had been a blur of uniforms, folded flags, and rehearsed condolences. "Your father died a hero," strangers told Sarah, as if heroism could fill the void at the dinner table. They buried an empty casket, no remains recovered, they said. Just personal effects and DNA evidence. Sarah had placed her father's favourite book, a dog-eared copy of The Old Man and the Sea, atop the casket before it descended into the ground, a symbolic gesture for a symbolic burial. Life reorganized itself around the absence. Mary took on extra nursing shifts, her grief channeled into caring for others. Sarah retreated into books and later, computer science at college, finding comfort in systems and code that followed logical rules, unlike the chaotic unfairness of life. Holidays became minefields of memory. James's birthday passed unmarked, except for Sarah's annual tradition of watching his favorite movie alone in her room. They survived, but survival wasn't living. The 21-gun salute still echoed in Sarah's nightmares sometimes. The precise folding of the flag, the sympathetic nods from her father's commanding officers. Had they known even then? Had they stood at his empty grave, knowing he was in a hospital somewhere, breathing, healing from wounds, sustained on a mission that officially never happened? James Miller had been a career soldier with the 5th Special Forces Group. His deployments were often classified, his stories from overseas carefully edited for family consumption. "Just boring guard duty," he'd say, though the medals in his footlocker told a different story. He'd met Mary when he was stationed at Fort Campbell, she a young nurse at the base hospital. Their wedding photos showed a handsome couple, James tall and proud in his dress uniform, Mary radiant in ivory lace. Sarah had her father's eyes and stubborn chin. Growing up on military bases, she'd absorbed his sense of duty and straightforward approach to problems. "Face things head-on, Sarah Bear," he'd say, using his special nickname for her. "No challenge backs down if you just hide from it." The irony of his apparent disappearance wasn't lost on her now. Before his final deployment, James had seemed different, distracted, checking his phone constantly, having hushed conversations that stopped when Sarah entered the room. Mary had attributed it to pre-deployment stress. Now Sarah wondered if he'd known something was coming, if the seeds of whatever happened in Afghanistan had been planted months earlier. The official condolence letter described an ambush outside a village near Kandahar. James's unit caught in enemy fire, an IED detonation, catastrophic casualties. The details were sparse, classified operation, limited information available to families. The personal effects returned to them had been few. His wedding ring, watch, the saint. Christopher Medal Mary had given him before his first tour, all supposedly recovered from the blast site. But if the hospital footage was genuine, what really happened that day, and in the 7 years since? Had her father been hiding voluntarily, or was he being held somewhere against his will? The questions multiplied with each passing hour, branching like lightning across a desert sky. In her motel room, Sarah created a timeline on the wall with sticky notes, the official death date, the hospital footage 3 weeks later, the 7-year gap, the sudden appearance of the Facebook profile, the mysterious file, Donovan's warnings. When she stepped back, the pattern seemed both random and deliberate, like a constellation that only made sense from a specific vantage point she hadn't found yet. Her phone rang. Her mother. "Sarah, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have mentioned years ago." Mary's voice sounded different, stripped of its usual careful composure. "About 2 months before the notification, your father called me. It was a bad connection, middle of the night. He said if anything strange happened, I should look in the fishing tackle box in the garage. He made me repeat it back to him. I thought it was just, I don't know, deployment paranoia. After he died, I checked, but there was nothing there except old lures and hooks." Sarah's pulse quickened. "Did you check the box itself? The lining, the compartments?" A long pause. "No, it's still in the garage somewhere." "Find it, Mum. Now." Sarah paced as she waited, her mind racing. James had been preparing, had tried to leave them something. The minutes stretched like taffy until her mother's breathless voice returned. "There's a false bottom." "Oh my God, Sarah." The sound of tearing, then rustling papers. "It's coordinates, I think, and names, and a key to something. Take photos of everything, send them now." Sarah's hands shook as the images appeared on her screen, handwritten notes in her father's distinctive block lettering, GPS coordinates for a location in Costa Rica, a list of 5 names, Donovan's among them, a key that looked like it might fit a safe deposit box, and at the bottom a message. "If you're reading this, I'm compromised. Trust only Whiskey 7. "What's Whiskey 7? Mary asked. "I don't know." Sarah studied the photos. "But Donovan might." The sunrise meeting suddenly took on even greater urgency. Whatever her father had hidden away, whatever he'd discovered, it was worth faking his death and abandoning his family to protect, or worth someone else forcing him to disappear. Night settled over Phoenix, the desert heat giving way to a cooler darkness. Sarah checked her motel room again, curtains secured, furniture against the door, bathroom window latched. Sleep seemed impossible, but exhaustion eventually pulled her under. Her dreams were filled with hospital corridors that stretched into infinity, her father always visible at the far end, but never reachable no matter how fast she ran. Morning would bring answers from Donovan, or more dangerous questions. Sarah clutched her father's St. Christopher medal, the one possession of his she'd claimed after the funeral. The patron saint of travelers, meant to protect journeys. She'd need all the protection she could get for the path ahead. Papago Park awakened with the desert, first light painting the sandstone buttes in shades of amber and gold. Sarah arrived 30 minutes early, scouting the meeting point, a cluster of picnic tables near the desert botanical garden. The park was nearly empty at this hour, just a few dedicated joggers on the trails and a grounds worker emptying trash cans. She chose a table with clear sight lines in all directions, her back to a steep hill that prevented anyone from approaching unseen. The coordinates from her father's hidden note pointed to a coastal location in Costa Rica, Playa Hermosa, according to her research. A tourist destination known for surfing and sport fishing. Had James escaped there? Was he building a new life on those distant shores while his family grieved? Or was it a rendezvous point, a safe location for something else? The questions multiplied with each passing hour. Donovan arrived precisely at sunrise, looking even more haggard than the day before. He carried no bag, wore a lightweight jacket despite the early heat, probably concealing a weapon. His eyes never stopped moving, scanning their surroundings as he limped toward her table. "You're either brave or foolish," he said by way of greeting. "Probably both, like your father." "I found something," Sarah said, showing him the photos from the tackle box. Coordinates, names, a key, and something called Whiskey 7. "Mean anything to you?" Donovan's expression shifted subtly. Recognition, followed by something darker. "Where did you get this?" "My father left it, before the mission, in case something happened." Sarah studied his reaction. He knew, didn't he? He knew something was going to go wrong. Donovan sank onto the bench, suddenly looking 10 years older. There were 5 of us on that final mission. Special assignment, off the books even by Special Forces standards. We were sent to intercept a high-value target, a courier carrying intelligence documents. Simple grab and extract operation, or so we were told. He glanced around again before continuing. But it was a setup from the start. When we reached the extraction point, our own side started shooting. Friendly fire? Sarah's voice barely rose above a whisper. Deliberate fire, Donovan corrected. 3 of us went down immediately. Your father took 2 rounds to the chest, would have died if not for his plate carrier. I caught 1 in the leg, hence the souvenir. He gestured at his limp. We were outnumbered, outgunned by our own people. We split up, agreed to go dark. The official report would list us as KIA. Easier that way. No manhunt for survivors. But why? What was in those intelligence documents? Your father managed to grab the package before everything went sideways. Evidence of black ops, illegal weapons sales, money laundering through military contracts. Big names implicated. Generals, intelligence directors, politicians. The kind of intel that gets people erased. Donovan's eyes locked on hers. Whiskey 7 isn't a what, Sarah. It's a who. Deep cover CIA. James's contact inside the agency. The only person who knew about the setup in advance and tried to warn us. Sarah struggled to process it all. Her father, running for his life from his own government. Hidden evidence of corruption at the highest levels. The Facebook profile. Was that him? Is he trying to make contact? Maybe. Or it's them trying to flush out anyone who might know where he is. Where the evidence is. Donovan checked his watch. We need to move. I've been in one place too long already. Take me to him, Sarah demanded. If he's alive, if you know where... I don't know where he is, Donovan cut her off. That was the agreement. Total separation. No contact. Safer that way. For 7 years, I've kept my head down, played the good soldier, then the good civilian. But they never stopped watching. The fact that you're asking questions has already put you on their radar. So what am I supposed to do? Go back to visiting an empty grave? Anger rose in Sarah's voice. He let us think he was dead for 7 years. To protect you, Donovan said sharply. As long as you believed it too, your grief was real. They were watching Sarah, at the funeral, after, making sure there was no code, no hidden messages. If they'd suspected for 1 second that you knew, the implications hung heavy in the morning air. Her father's absence, his greatest act of protection. The thought didn't lessen the pain, but it shifted something in her understanding. Donovan stood suddenly. We've got company, grey sedan, north entrance past the cactus garden. Been circling for the last 5 minutes. His voice remained calm, but his posture had changed. Alert, ready for threat. We're going to walk, casually, toward the hiking trail. There's a maintenance road on the other side of that ridge. My truck's parked there. Sarah gathered her things, pulse racing as they set off toward the trailhead. She risked a glance back. 2 men in sunglasses were indeed walking purposefully in their direction from the parking lot. Are those private military contractors, not official government, but on their payroll? Deniable assets. Donovan quickened their pace slightly. Don't run. Running attracts attention. They crested the small ridge, the maintenance road coming into view below. Donovan's faded blue pickup waited behind a utility shed. Almost there, he murmured. When we reached the truck, the crack of gunfire cut him off, followed by the ping of metal hitting stone near their feet. Without hesitation, Donovan grabbed Sarah's arm and pulled her into a run. Cover blown! Move! They scrambled down the embankment, loose rocks sliding beneath their feet. Another shot splintered bark from a saguaro cactus near Sarah's head. They reached the truck, Donovan pushing her toward the passenger side before limping quickly around to the driver's door. The engine roared to life as bullets peppered the tailgate. Get down! Donovan shouted, flooring the accelerator. The truck fishtailed on the dirt road before finding traction, dust billowing behind them as they sped away from the park. Sarah crouched below window level, heart hammering against her ribs. The peaceful morning had exploded into violence in seconds. Still think your father should have stayed? Donovan asked grimly, checking the rearview mirror. This is what he was protecting you from. For 7 years. Donovan drove erratically, taking sudden turns through residential neighborhoods, doubling back, checking constantly for pursuers. Sarah clutched the dashboard, fighting waves of nausea as the reality of their situation sank in. This wasn't a mystery to solve anymore. It was a deadly game with rules she didn't understand. "We need to get off the grid," Donovan said, pulling into a shopping center parking lot. "Ditch our phones, credit cards, anything trackable." He reached under his seat and pulled out a worn backpack. Emergency kit. Cash, prepaid phones, basic supplies. Old habits. A humorless smile touched his lips. "Your father would have done the same." Sarah's thoughts raced back to her mother. "I need to warn my mom. If they came after us..." "Use this." Donovan handed her one of the prepaid phones. "One call. Make it brief. Tell her to go somewhere public, then somewhere unexpected. Not family or close friends. Those are the first places they'll look." The phone felt alien in Sarah's hand as she dialed her mother's number, praying she would answer an unknown caller. Mary picked up on the third ring, voice cautious. "Mom, it's me. Don't say my name. Don't say where you are." Sarah struggled to keep her voice steady. "The people who broke in, they're dangerous. You need to leave now. Go to a public place, then somewhere no one would expect. A hotel under a different name." She paused, heart breaking at the fear in her mother's breathing. "I'm safe, but I can't come home yet. I love you." "Is this about your father?" Mary whispered. "Yes, he was trying to protect us. He still is." Sarah fought back tears. "I'll contact you when I can. Be careful." She ended the call, hands shaking as she removed the battery from the phone as Donovan instructed. He did the same with his own devices, then pulled back onto the road. "We need distance," he said, "and a plan." "The coordinates," Sarah said. "Costa Rica. That has to be where he is or where the evidence is." "Possibly, but getting there won't be simple. Commercial flights are out. They'll be watching airports, borders." Donovan navigated toward the interstate. "But I might know someone who can help. Former pilot runs supply drops to remote areas. No questions asked." They drove east, away from Phoenix, the desert landscape stretching endlessly around them. Sarah watched the familiar world recede in the side mirror. College classes, her part-time job, the normal life she'd built in the aftermath of grief, all suspended now, perhaps permanently. "How did you do it?" she asked finally. "Disappear. Start over. Knowing what you left behind." Donovan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "I didn't have what your father had. No wife, no kids. Just parents I barely spoke to anyway." His eyes remained fixed on the road. "It was easier for me. Your father, he talked about you constantly, carried your photo everywhere. Leaving you was the hardest decision he ever made. But necessary?" "He thought so." Donovan sighed. "The people after that intel, they don't have limits, Sarah. They would have used you and your mother as leverage, hurt you to get to him. Leaving, letting you believe he died, it was the only protection he could offer." They stopped for gas at a remote station near the New Mexico border, paying cash. While Donovan filled the tank, Sarah used the grimy bathroom, splashing water on her face and staring at her reflection. Dark circles underscored her eyes. Her father's eyes. What would he think of her now, charging headlong into the danger he'd sacrificed everything to keep from her door? Back on the road, Donovan handed her a protein bar from his emergency pack. "My contact is in Las Cruces. We'll reach him by nightfall if we're lucky." He hesitated. "There's something else you should know. The video you showed me from the hospital? That facility is off books, used exclusively for intelligence assets. High security. If your father was there, he wasn't a patient. He was a prisoner." The protein bar turned to ash in Sarah's mouth. "You think they've had him all this time?" "I don't know, but if they caught him, if they thought he'd hidden the evidence somewhere, they wouldn't just kill him. They'd need information first." 7 years. The thought of her father enduring captivity while they lived their diminished lives, adjusting to his absence, celebrating birthdays and Christmases, it hollowed Sarah from the inside out. Had he been thinking of them during all that time? Hoping someone would uncover the truth? "The Facebook profile," she said suddenly. "If he's been held somewhere, he couldn't have created it. But if they did, why lead me to his trail?" Donovan frowned. Maybe they've exhausted their options with him. Maybe they think family connections might reveal something he wouldn't, even under pressure. They lapsed into silence, each lost in their own thoughts as miles of desert passed outside the windows. Sarah dozed fitfully, dreams fragmented by images of her father in a sterile cell, waiting for a rescue that never came. She woke with a start as the truck slowed. "Rest stop ahead," Donovan said. "We should stretch, use the facilities. Long drive still ahead." The isolated rest area was nearly deserted, just a few truckers napping in their rigs and a family with young children having a picnic. Sarah headed for the women's restroom, while Donovan went to check the vending machines for supplies. Alone in the bathroom stall, Sarah finally let the tears come, silent, shuddering sobs that bent her double. The enormity of what she'd discovered, the danger they were in, the possibility that her father had suffered while she built a new life without him, it crashed over her in waves. She allowed herself exactly 2 minutes of breakdown before pulling herself together. Crying wouldn't save her father. Action would. Washing her face in the sink, she didn't immediately notice the woman who entered behind her. It was only when their eyes met in the mirror that Sarah felt a chill of recognition. The woman from the bar in Phoenix, the one Donovan had pointed out as watching them. "Hello, Sarah," the woman said quietly. "I think it's time we talked about your father." The woman looked nothing like an operative, mid-50s, shoulder-length grey hair, the kind face of a kindergarten teacher. But her eyes were sharp, assessing, incongruous with her gentle appearance. She kept her distance, hands visible, non-threatening. "My name is Eleanor Hayes. I worked with your father, and with Whiskey 7. She spoke softly, glancing at the bathroom door. "We don't have much time. Donovan is being watched." Sarah's back pressed against the cold tile wall. "Are you with them? The ones who shot at us?" "No, different side entirely." Eleanor's gaze never wavered. "Your father didn't disappear to Costa Rica, Sarah. The coordinates are for the evidence, not for him. Where is he then?" Sarah's voice cracked with emotion. "Until 3 weeks ago, he was held in a black site facility in Poland. We've been trying to extract him for years." Eleanor moved closer, lowering her voice further. "The Facebook profile was us. A calculated risk to make contact with you, hoping you'd start asking questions. We couldn't approach directly, too dangerous for everyone. Why now? After 7 years? Because he escaped." Eleanor's words landed like stones in still water. 3 weeks ago, during a transfer. We had help from inside but lost contact during extraction. His last known heading was toward the Costa Rican coordinates. He's trying to reach the evidence before they recapture him." Sarah's mind reeled. Her father, free after 7 years of captivity, racing against unknown forces. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" Eleanor reached slowly into her pocket and withdrew a small object, a carved wooden fish, no larger than a thumb. "He made this in captivity, said it was for Sarah Bear." Sarah's breath caught, the nickname only her father used, the clumsy fish he'd helped her carve on a camping trip when she was 9. She reached for it with trembling fingers. "Donovan doesn't know everything," Eleanor continued. "He went dark immediately after the ambush, has been running ever since. He doesn't know about the extraction, the escape. He's been trying to protect you, but he's operating on outdated information." "Why tell me this? Why involve me at all?" Sarah clutched the wooden fish, its edges worn smooth as if from years of handling. "Because your father is injured. Because time is running out. Because the evidence he hid implicates people at the highest levels of government, people who won't stop until both he and it are destroyed." Eleanor checked her watch. "And because he asked for you, Sarah, in his last communication. He said you were the only one who could find him now." A toilet flushed in one of the stalls, an abrupt reminder they weren't alone. Eleanor tensed, then continued more quietly. "I can't be seen with you. They know my face. But take this." She pressed a small USB drive into Sarah's palm. "Satellite phone number, location details, everything you need to find him." "Why should I trust you?" Sarah demanded, even as her fingers closed around the drive. "You shouldn't." Eleanor's smile was sad. "Trust the wooden fish. Trust that your father has been fighting to get back to you for 7 years, and decide quickly. Donovan will be looking for you." As if on cue, a sharp knock came at the bathroom door. "Sarah, you okay in there?" Donovan's voice, edged with concern. Eleanor moved toward the far exit. "Be careful who you trust, Sarah. Even those with good intentions can lead you into danger." She slipped through the door and was gone, leaving Sarah alone with a carved fish, a USB drive, and a decision that would alter the course of her life. "Coming," Sarah called to Donovan, quickly tucking both items into her pocket. Her mind raced as she pushed open the door to find him waiting, his expression tense. "We need to move," he said. "Spotted a vehicle that's made 3 passes of the parking lot. Could be nothing, but let's go," Sarah agreed, falling into step beside him. The weight of Eleanor's revelations pressed against her chest. If she was telling the truth, her father was alive, free, and trying to reach Costa Rica. If she was lying, but why lie about something so easily disproven? They returned to the truck in silence, Sarah's thoughts churning. Should she tell Donovan about the encounter, about the new information? Eleanor had warned against trusting him completely, but he'd already risked his life to help her. The carved fish in her pocket seemed to burn against her skin, tangible proof her father had survived captivity, had thought of her during those long years. As they pulled back onto the highway, Sarah made her decision. "I need to tell you something," she began, watching Donovan's face carefully. "Someone approached me in the bathroom, a woman named Eleanor Hayes. She says she worked with my father and with Whiskey 7. Donovan's reaction was immediate. A sharp intake of breath, hands tightening on the wheel. "Eleanor?" His voice held disbelief and something else. Recognition. "What did she tell you?" Sarah related the conversation, watching as Donovan's expression shifted from shock to calculation. When she mentioned her father's escape, he pulled abruptly onto the shoulder, gravel spraying beneath the tires. "Show me the drive," he demanded, holding out his hand. When Sarah hesitated, he added, "Please, I need to verify something." She reluctantly passed him the small USB drive. Donovan examined it closely, then returned it. "It's clean. No tracking device, but we'll need a secure system to access it." He stared out the windshield, processing. "If what she told you is true, everything changes. Your father free, heading for Costa Rica." He shook his head. "It's a race now, between us, them, and your father." "Then we need to win," Sarah said simply. "I've lost 7 years already." "I won't lose him again." Donovan nodded slowly. "Las Cruces first. My contact there can get us transport equipment. Then Costa Rica." He pulled back onto the highway, pushing the truck faster than before. "If James is free, if he's heading for the evidence, he'll be leaving markers. Signs only you would recognize." "Like what?" Sarah asked. "That's what we need to figure out." Donovan glanced at her. "You knew him best, Sarah. If he's trying to communicate with you specifically, what would he use? What shared references, inside jokes, memories?" Sarah closed her eyes, mind racing through birthdays, vacations, quiet evenings at home. The wooden fish was one such reference. What else might her father use as breadcrumbs to lead her to him? The answer felt close, hovering just beyond her reach, a connection waiting to be rediscovered. Las Cruces appeared on the horizon as twilight descended, the city lights blinking on across the desert valley. Donovan navigated through increasingly residential areas, finally turning down a narrow road leading to a small private airstrip. A weathered hangar stood at the far end, a single light illuminating the entrance. "My contact," Donovan explained as they approached. "Liam Reese, former Air Force, now flies cargo to places others won't go. No official manifests, no questions asked. If anyone can get us to Costa Rica undetected, it's him." The hangar door slid open as they parked, revealing a lean man with salt and pepper hair and the weathered face of someone who'd spent decades in the sun. He watched their approach with guarded eyes, a subtle shift in his stance suggesting a concealed weapon. "Been a while, Donovan?" Reese called, his gaze sliding to Sarah. "This the package?" "This is Sarah Miller, James's daughter." Donovan made the introduction with a formality that suggested the importance of the lineage. "Sarah, meet Liam Reese. Your father saved his life in Kandahar 2010. Reese's expression softened slightly. "You have his eyes." He gestured them inside, securing the door behind them. The hangar housed a small twin-engine plane, tools organized meticulously along one wall. "Donovan tells me you're looking to take an unscheduled vacation." "Costa Rica," Sarah confirmed, "as soon as possible." Reese studied her for a long moment. "Dangerous vacation, especially now. Word is there's increased activity around Playa Hermosa. Private security types, asking questions, watching airfields and marinas." "They're looking for my father," Sarah said. "He's alive and he's trying to reach coordinates in that area." If Reese was surprised by this revelation, he didn't show it. Figured it was something like that when Donovan called. Been expecting this day for years. He moved to a battered filing cabinet, withdrew maps and what looked like satellite imagery. "I can get you within 20 miles of the coordinates, but not directly there. Too hot right now. Night landing on a private strip owned by a friend who doesn't ask questions." "When?" Donovan asked. "Dawn. Need to finalize the flight plan, fuel up, and you both need rest." Reese pointed to a small adjoining office. Cot in there, bathroom in the back. Not the Ritz, but it's secure. Perimeter alarms, cameras. I'll wake you when it's time. Left alone in the sparse office, Sarah finally accessed the USB drive on an old laptop Reese provided, disconnected from any network. The files confirmed Eleanor's story. Surveillance photos of a facility in Poland, redacted reports of a prisoner transfer gone wrong, the last known coordinates of an injured man matching her father's description heading south through Mexico toward Costa Rica. Most haunting were the photos, grainy surveillance images of a man who both was and wasn't the father she remembered, thinner, hair grey despite being only 49, but with the same determined set to his jaw. In one image, he looked directly at the camera, and Sarah felt the weight of 7 years of separation in that gaze. "He never stopped trying to come home," Donovan said quietly from behind her. He'd entered silently, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Even when it seemed impossible, Sarah stared at the screen, at the stranger who was her father. What did they want from him all those years? The location of the evidence, primarily. The documents he took implicate dozens of officials in weapons trafficking, drug running, millions in black budget funds diverted to private accounts. Donovan sat heavily on a folding chair. But James never broke, never gave them what they wanted. And now he's free, trying to reach the evidence before they recapture him. Sarah scrolled through the files, stopping on a map marked with the Costa Rican coordinates. It's in a national park, near the coast but inland, mountainous. Good place to hide something you don't want found. Remote, difficult terrain, protected from development. Donovan studied the map. The question is, what exactly are we looking for, and how will we recognize it? Sarah thought of the wooden fish in her pocket, the references to her childhood. He'd make it something only I would understand, something connected to us. They lapsed into silence, each lost in their own thoughts as night deepened outside. Sarah dozed fitfully on the cot, dreams filled with jungle paths and her father's voice calling from just beyond the next ridge. She woke to Reese shaking her shoulder gently. "Time to go. Dawn in 30 minutes. They loaded quickly into the small plane, Reese going through pre-flight checks with practiced efficiency. The eastern sky was just beginning to lighten as they taxied down the short runway, the plane gathering speed, before lifting into the cool morning air. Sarah watched the desert fall away below them, the landscape transforming as they gained altitude. 8 hours to Costa Rica," Reese called over the engine noise. "We'll refuel once in southern Mexico private strip. Stay below major radar corridors." Sarah settled back in her seat, the USB drive secure in her pocket alongside the wooden fish. Somewhere ahead, her father was making his way toward the same coordinates, injured but determined. Would they reach him in time? Would they find whatever he had hidden before the others did? Beside her, Donovan dozed, his face relaxed in sleep for the first time since she'd met him. The burden of 7 years of running visible in the lines around his eyes, the premature grey at his temples. He'd been loyal to her father, had risked everything to help her. But Eleanor's warning echoed in her mind. Be careful who you trust. As the sun rose fully, painting the clouds in gold and pink, Sarah felt a strange calm settle over her. After 7 years of grief and uncertainty, she was finally moving toward answers, toward her father. Whatever dangers lay ahead, whatever truths waited to be uncovered, she was ready to face them. The plane banked southward, following invisible airways toward Costa Rica. Below, the American landscape gave way to Mexico, mountains and deserts, then forests and coastlines. Sarah watched it all pass, thinking of her father making this same journey, perhaps on foot, perhaps injured, driven by the same determination that now propelled her forward. "I'm coming, Dad," she whispered to the clouds beyond the window. "Hold on. I'm coming." The small plane touched down on a narrow dirt airstrip carved into the Costa Rican rainforest, jolting violently as Reese fought to slow their descent. Trees crowded the runway edges, their branches seeming to reach for the wingtips as they taxied to a stop near a small corrugated metal hangar. The humid air hit Sarah like a wall when the cabin door opened, thick with the scents of vegetation and rain-soaked earth. "End of the line for me," Reese announced, helping them unload their minimal gear. "My contact will be here within the hour, Marta Delgado. Local guide, knows these mountains better than anyone, trustworthy." Donovan surveyed their surroundings, eyes narrowed against the bright tropical sunlight. "How far are we from the coordinates?" "About 18 miles northeast, rough terrain, mountains, rivers, dense forest. Not a casual hike." Reese handed them a weatherproof map with a route marked in red. Marta will get you close. After that, you're on your own. Sarah studied the map, the marked location deep within Braulio Carrillo National Park. What had her father hidden there? And how would she recognize it when they found it? While they waited for Marta, Sarah accessed the USB drive one last time on Reese's laptop. The most recent intelligence suggested her father had crossed into Costa Rica 3 days earlier, moving steadily toward the coordinates despite his injuries. There were also reports of increased activity in the area. Private security teams converging, satellite surveillance redirected to the region. "It's a race," she murmured. "Everyone's closing in." "James has the advantage," Donovan said. "He knows exactly what he's looking for, exactly where it is." "So do we," Sarah countered. "We have the same coordinates." "Coordinates aren't enough. There'll be a secondary key, something specific to identify the exact location, maybe a code or reference." Donovan packed the last of their supplies into waterproof bags. "Something only you would understand." Marta arrived driving an ancient but well-maintained Land Rover, her no-nonsense demeanor apparent from the moment she stepped out. Small but muscular, with intelligent eyes that assessed them quickly, she greeted Reese with a brief hug before turning to Sarah and Donovan. "You're looking for something in the park," she stated, rather than asked. "Or someone." "Reese says it's urgent and requires discretion." Her accented English was precise, her gaze direct. "I can take you to the edge of the preserve by vehicle. After that we walk. The terrain is challenging, especially now, rainy season." As if emphasizing her point, thunder rumbled in the distance. Marta glanced skyward. "We should go. Storm coming, and we want to reach the base camp before nightfall." The drive was brutal, the Land Rover bouncing along narrow dirt roads that became increasingly primitive as they penetrated deeper into the forest. Conversation was impossible over the engine noise and the constant jostling, leaving Sarah alone with her thoughts. She fingered the wooden fish in her pocket, a tangible connection to her father. 7 years of separation, of believing him dead, and now they were closing the gap, mile by mile. They reached the edge of the drivable road by mid-afternoon, the wall of rainforest rising before them like a living barrier. Marta parked the vehicle in a concealed area off the track, covering it with pre-cut branches to disguise its presence. "From here we walk," she announced, shouldering a well-worn backpack. 3 hours to base camp if we maintain a good pace. Watch for snakes, especially on fallen logs." The hiking was as difficult as Marta had warned, steep in places, the ground slippery from recent rain, vegetation so thick in spots they had to use machetes to clear a path. Sarah's legs burned with the effort, but she pushed forward relentlessly. Somewhere ahead, perhaps on this same path, her father was making his way toward the hidden evidence, injured, hunted, but still fighting. They reached the base camp, a small clearing with a rudimentary shelter, just as dusk was falling. Marta efficiently set up a camp stove, while Donovan secured the perimeter, setting small alarms on the approach paths. Sarah unfolded the map, calculating distances. "We're 6 miles from the coordinates," she reported. "We could reach it by mid-morning tomorrow if the terrain cooperates." "Others are in the forest," Marta said quietly, stirring a pot of beans and rice. "I saw signs on the way, fresh cuts in vegetation, not made by locals, boot prints too large for Costa Ricans. At least 2 groups moving fast." Donovan nodded grimly. "Race is heating up." After a simple but filling meal, they gathered around a small, smokeless fire, voices lowered despite the isolation. Marta marked potential routes on the map, identifying the most difficult sections, areas where they might be exposed to observation from higher ground. "Your father," she said suddenly to Sarah. "Reese told me he was a soldier, missing for many years. Now you believe he is alive, heading for the same location." Sarah hesitated, then nodded. The guide had earned their trust with her skill and discretion. "Then we should watch for signs," Marta continued. "If he passed this way, he may have left markers, especially if he hoped you would follow." "What kind of markers?" Sarah asked. "In these forests? Broken branches placed in patterns, stones arranged unnaturally, marks carved in trees." Marta fed another small stick to the fire. "Things that seemed deliberate, not accidental, things that would mean something to you specifically." The conversation shifted to plans for the morning departure, but Sarah's mind lingered on Marta's words. Her father would have left signs, breadcrumbs for her to follow. But what form would they take? What references would he use, knowing they might be separated by 7 years and thousands of miles? As the others prepared for sleep, Sarah stepped just outside the shelter, staring up at the patches of starry sky visible through the canopy. The same stars her father might be seeing tonight, perhaps only miles away. The thought created an almost physical ache in her chest. Movement in the shadows startled her. Marta, silent as a ghost, appearing at her side. "There is something else you should know," the guide said softly. 3 days ago, a man came to my village. American, injured, gunshot wound to his side, poorly treated. He did not give his name, but asked questions about paths through the national park, about reaching specific coordinates. She paused, studying Sarah's face in the dim light. "He had your eyes." Sarah's breath caught. "Did he say anything else? Leave anything?" "Only payment for information. And this." Marta reached into her pocket and withdrew a small object, another carved wooden fish nearly identical to the one Sarah carried. "He said if a young woman came looking for these same coordinates, I should give this to her. No one else." Sarah took the carving with trembling hands. Like the first, it was simple, almost crude, but unmistakably made by the same hands. She turned it over and gasped softly. Carved into the bottom was a series of numbers, 17 to 19 to 44. "A code," she whispered. "Or a clue." "He is alive then," Marta said, "and expecting you. We will find him tomorrow, God willing." For the first time since discovering the Facebook profile, hope bloomed fully in Sarah's chest. Not just the desperate hope of someone chasing ghosts, but the tangible certainty that her father was alive, was near, was waiting. The wooden fish in her hand felt warm, a connection across the darkness separating them. "Yes," she agreed, closing her fingers around the carving. "Tomorrow. Serisuervai, Block 8, 1,000 words." Dawn broke in layers of mist, the forest awakening around them as they prepared to move out. Sarah had slept fitfully, the wooden fish clutched in her hand, mind working on the meaning of the numbers her father had carved. 17 to 19 to 44. A date? Coordinates? A page number from a book they both knew? The answer came to her as she packed her gear, her father's military service numbers, the ones she'd memorized as a child when he taught her about dog tags. "So if you ever need to identify me," he'd explained, "these numbers are uniquely mine." He'd used them as computer passwords, garage door codes, a sequence so personal it could only be meant for her. "I know what the numbers mean," she told Donovan and Marta, as they set off into the dripping forest. "They're my father's military ID. He's confirming it's really him leaving these signs." Donovan nodded thoughtfully. "Smart. Simple yet specific. Anyone could carve a fish, but those numbers are something only you would recognize as significant." They moved as quickly as the terrain allowed, Marta leading with machete in hand when necessary, finding game trails when possible. The land rose steadily, the forest growing denser as they climbed. By mid-morning they'd covered nearly 4 miles, pausing at a small stream to refill water bottles. 2 miles to the coordinates, Marta reported, studying the GPS unit. "But we must cross the river ahead, then climb the ridge. Difficult terrain." As they rested briefly, Sarah scanned their surroundings, looking for any sign her father might have left. Nothing obvious appeared, but as she turned to continue, a flash of color caught her eye, something unnatural among the green and brown of the forest floor. She moved closer, pushing aside a broad leaf to reveal a faded red bandana tied around a sapling, the knot distinctive, a bowline, the one her father had taught her for securing their canoe during camping trips. "Here!" she called, heart racing. "He was here!" Donovan examined the knot without touching it. Recent, within days, the fabrics barely weathered despite the humidity. Marta pointed to almost imperceptible disturbances in the vegetation beyond. "He continued that way, toward the river but not directly toward the coordinates. He's being careful," Donovan surmised. "In direct approach, watching for followers." They adjusted their route to follow the signs of passage, Sarah's eyes constantly scanning for more markers. They found 2 more, another carved fish hidden in a hollow tree, and a distinctive arrangement of stones that mimicked the constellation Orion, her father's favorite. The river appeared suddenly through the trees, wider and faster flowing than expected. Mist rose from the churning water, the sound drowning out conversation, unless they shouted. Marta led them upstream to a narrower crossing point, where fallen trees created a precarious natural bridge. One at a time, she instructed. Move slowly, stay balanced. Donovan went first, testing each step carefully before committing his weight, his injured leg clearly causing him pain on the uneven surface. Marta followed, nimble despite her pack. Sarah crossed last, focusing on each placement of her feet, trying not to look at the rushing water below. Halfway across, a sudden crack made her freeze. One of the branches supporting her weight had split. She wobbled, arms out for balance, heart hammering against her ribs. Donovan called something from the bank, his voice lost in the river's roar. Sarah took a deep breath, shifted her weight forward incrementally, and lunged for the remaining solid section of tree. She made it across by inches, the broken bridge collapsing into the current behind her. Close, Marta commented, helping her up the muddy bank. Your father would have faced the same crossing. With his injuries, it would have been even more difficult. The thought of her father making this journey alone, wounded, hunted, it strengthened Sarah's resolve. They continued climbing the ridge beyond the river, the vegetation gradually thinning as they gained elevation. According to the GPS, they were now less than a mile from the coordinates. Wait, Donovan said suddenly, raising his hand. Listen. They froze, straining to hear past the ambient sounds of the forest. Then Sarah caught it, the distant thump of helicopter rotors growing steadily louder. Take cover, Marta hissed, pulling them beneath a dense stand of trees. Military or private security, either way not good for us. They crouched in the undergrowth as the helicopter appeared over the ridge ahead, flying low, its downwash bending the treetops violently. Through breaks in the canopy, Sarah glimpsed men with tactical gear and rifles scanning the forest below. They're searching the area around the coordinates, Donovan whispered. Systematic grid pattern. Professional. The helicopter made 3 passes before banking away, the sound gradually fading. Donovan's expression was grim when they emerged from cover. We're not the only ones closing in. We need to hurry. The final approach to the coordinates took them along a narrow ridgeline with increasingly rocky terrain. The forest had transitioned to more scattered growth, making them potentially visible from the air. They moved in short bursts, using available cover, painfully aware of their exposure. The GPS indicated they were within 100 yards of their destination when Marta suddenly dropped to a crouch, signaling for silence. Ahead, voices carried on the breeze, at least 2 people, speaking English with American accents. Donovan motioned for Sarah to stay down while he crept forward to investigate. He returned minutes later, expression tense. Private contractors, heavily armed. 3 men, setting up surveillance around a cave entrance just below the ridgeline, exactly at our coordinates. The evidence is in the cave, Sarah whispered. But how do we get past them? We don't. Not directly. Donovan studied the terrain. There might be another entrance. Many caves in these mountains have multiple access points. Marta nodded. There are stories in my village of connected cave systems beneath these ridges. Ancient people used them for ceremonies, for hiding from conquistadors.